Hi everyone, I am Himanshi. In the second year of college, I interned with Barclays in the summer of 2024. And as part of SRCC, I held the training and development department of the placement cell SRCC. And getting an internship at Barclays gave me an opportunity to explore the corporate world, right? And further, I'll be discussing about my experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Bhavya. I'm a third year student at BCom Honors at SRCC. During my second year of summer, I also did an internship with Barclays in the internal audit division. During college, I was also part of the debating society, held a POR over there. And yeah, really excited to discuss about my internship experience.
Alright, so the application process at Barclays comprised of three major phases. First one was the application and test phase. So test also comprised of two parts within itself. One was the technical questions and the other was personality based questions. So the technical test questions comprised of LR questions, quant questions, etc., which were pretty basic. And the personality based questions were mostly this or that to judge whether you would be a good fit for their internal audit role or not. Next stage was the CV shortlist. So those who cleared the test stage, their CVs were sent to the company, and we got received the CV shortlist of around 35 students. Followed by the CV shortlist stage, there was the pre-internship talk and the day of final interviews. So pre-internship talk was not really evaluative in nature. It was just to for them to tell us that what do they expect from a candidate, etc., and what kind of an interview do they expect, and what kind of a personality do they expect from the candidate. And then there were 2 rounds of final interviews. So final interviews did not have any technical questions per se. It was mostly personality, how you can talk to them, what kind of a person you are, how you can behave in a corporate setting, what are your goals and ambitions in life, and what do you expect from the internship. So rather than they asking you technical questions about the role, which was internal audit, it was mostly that what do you expect from the internship, so that they can gauge whether we'll be right fit for them and they'll be right fit for us. So the interview was mostly conversational in nature. And what tips I would give for the upcoming batches would be that mostly for the interview stage, because the rest is pretty basic and common to every other company, but the interviews I feel were very different in the sense that they just wanted you, to be your real self and share what goals and ambitions you have in life and whether they are like in line with what Barclays expects.
So essentially, the internship was in the sphere of internal audit, and that was not something that I was very aware of. Like, we hear of the Big Four, but they tend to work in external audit. So this is essentially a division which is within the company, and it works at auditing regularly the bank's functioning. So that includes audits of all the retail bank working, as well as like the investment bank or every other aspect of the bank. Barclays is one of the largest banks in the world. So I think my expectations from the thing, I didn't have a lot of expectations per se, because I didn't want to go in with this very fixed mindset. And I really wanted to go in with an open mindset, because this was something that I was not very aware of. It's very different from the typical consulting, finance or marketing roles which tend to come on our campus. And I think the actual experience itself has been really enriching, because you get to see a very first glance of the bank and like a very front seat view of how the bank works. And the reason for that is because the audit has a very 360 view of the entire bank's functioning, right? And because you're working right at the heart of it, I think that was an extremely interesting viewpoint for us to be in. And I think a major surprise for me was that I got to know that I was placed in the Barclays UK team. So a lot of my working was actually with the retail bank present in the UK, working on like customer facing audits. So I think that was very interesting.
A typical day at Barclays vary differently in the start as well as the end of the internship. So during the starting weeks, it was more like to get to know your team better. So in the Barclays internal audit division, there were around 40 to 45 employees at different posts each, and all of them worked together as one single team. So once you were introduced to a team, you had a few people who you had to report to directly, which was two managers for me. And apart from that, I had to acquaint myself to the entire team and my other two fellow interns who joined the internship 2 weeks before I had joined. So after getting to know the team, it was mostly learning the BIA framework. So BIA stands for Barclays Internal Audit. So that's when you join an audit team, you need to understand what you mean by internal audit, because it's very different and it's not like a financial audit. Rather, auditing each and everything that the bank does can be qualitative as well as quantitative in nature. So understanding the concept of audit. So in the initial 2 to 3 weeks, we just had to set sessions with each person in the team, each senior person in the team, to understand the BIA framework in detail and in regularity, so that we could cover the entire 30-40 page document to have a proper understanding of it. Followed by that, in the upcoming weeks, let's say week 4 to week 5 or 6, we worked on a shadow audit. Like, we shadowed in an audit. So it was an actual audit which had already been performed by the team, and we were required to re-audit that in order to analyze what were the mistakes which were done in that audit and prepare or come up with our own understanding and our own document to critique the audit which was conducted in past. And finally, in week 5 to week 8 of our internship, we had to work on a live audit wherein we were actually labeled as auditors on their official portal. And this comprised of talking to diverse teams who were the stakeholders of that audit. So typically, you check in to the office. You have your morning meetings at 11, which was fixed to happen every day. Then you discuss internally within the team. You discuss with your external stakeholders. You prepare your statements, and you perform the checks and challenges within the audit. And yeah, the internship ended with our final presentation, which we were supposed to give to the head of the internal audit team, summarizing our entire journey and our experience in Barclays.
So as Himanshi mentioned, the starting for internship had really been focused on the training and development aspect of things. So we had to understand what essentially does internal audit do, how do they do that internal auditing, and what is expected out of you as an intern, and even what is expected out of you once you join the team as a full-time person. So essentially, for me, in the morning times, I'd spend about an hour or so going through the framework myself and the methodology and the resources that they've given us. Followed by that, I have a check-in with my manager, talk about what is it that I've learned in the previous day, and correlate that with actual audits which have been done by the team previously. And then around 1:30, when the UK team would start logging in, we would have a meet about the audit that I had been a part of. I was also shadowing an audit with the retail bank in UK. So essentially, we would go ahead and talk about what are the tasks of the day, what had been the previous tasks of the day, and whether we are up to date with all of that, what are the stakeholders that we need to meet with, and how do we take this audit forward. So the audit had been in its planning stage, and that was essentially what the check-in meeting had been about. I also used this internship mainly to network with a lot of senior leaders, both within the Indian offices, which was in Pune and Chennai, as well as with the UK offices. So they have a couple of offices in like London, Radbrook, etc. And I took out the time to almost every day reach out to one senior person, either at a VP, director, or MD stage. So I think for me, half of my day was towards interacting with these senior leaders and trying to understand whether I see myself joining this division on a long-time basis or not. Also, talking on a more weekly basis, I think at the end of the week, we would often do like a live case study from a bank crisis and how auditing could have actually helped out. So we did case studies on like the Lehman Brothers and how internal audit could have actually prevented the whole 2007 financial collapse. And I think more on the fun side, if I had to talk about things, the BIA team was very involved with sports activities. So we had cricket days and we had badminton days, and there was a whole championship tournament which happened for all these sports. And there would be team lunches, and you would also have like a great rapport with your fellow interns who would join.
major technical skills that I learned during the internship were mostly working on Excel and on their own software, internal audit software, which was within the internal team. And so that software was basically a repository of all the internal audits they had done previously. It contained a record of like each and everything: when did the audit start, who worked on that audit, when did that audit end, what was the topic of that audit, which all teams did it comprise of, and many other small little details, whatever you can expect from the audit. So it contained all the details. So that was the internal audit software that they had. Apart from that, all the audits that we performed. So for example, in one audit, if there are 200 data points, so all of these records were maintained on Excel, and all like Excel had links to all the files, all the proofs, all the evidences, and all the details of the stakeholders that we had to reach out to. So this entire combination of 6-7 Excels we had to work on. So this comprised of the major technical skills. Apart from that, I would say that on the learning front, I learned a little more about accounting, auditing, and how the team functions and how functions perform in a bank itself or other banks. Like for example, Barclays used to draw a lot of parallels with other banks like Deutsche Bank or JP Morgan. So the internal functioning of these banks was kind of taught to us in the initial days. Apart from that, I think Barclays laid a lot of emphasis on soft skills, be it interacting with the teams, be it interacting with international teams, spending a day with them, on your social skills. For example, we also had a tree plantation drive during our internship. We had an entire badminton day. We had a lot of team lunches, dinners in the office, outside the office. So I think soft skills portion is also emphasized.
Alright, so I think this internship was probably one of the most well-designed ones on behalf of like the BIA team and like the early careers team, which had essentially designed the entire internship, the 8 weeks that you were with them, right on board from like onboarding to the very end presentation that you have to give to the MD. So essentially, it gives you a really good insight into what is it that internal audit is. So I think you spend your 8 weeks just understanding, hey, listen, if I come back after finishing my graduation, do I really want to be in this domain or not? And whether my skills and my interests align with what is it that this bank is doing. And I think interacting with all these senior professionals, working on an audit yourself, all of it just gives you better insight into what is it that internal audit does.
One primary advice to all of those who wish to continue in this field. So basically, if you see the role, it is internal audit. So a lot of students might not apply or might not like the internship because they feel that they are not interested in internal audit or audit in general. But I would like to say that this internship at Barclays was very different. So in the sense that you would not have a lot of audit related tasks, rather there was a lot of emphasis on other factors like your holistic development to be able to work at such a huge global multinational bank at this age as an intern. So that was a huge opportunity that this bank provided. So the holistic personality development, networking within the team, getting to know and getting to learn from the experiences of all of your managers who you were able to talk to on one-on-one basis. So that learning, I think, is very important. So this is something that you should expect instead of just expecting a lot of work on internal audit. So just that the overall personality development should be something that you should keep in mind, because sometimes the company overshadows the role.
My advice to people who wish to apply to this field or even want to continue in it would be something that my manager had told me. They said that internal auditors are essentially like detectives, and they have to find out whether there's anything going wrong with the bank and essentially ensure compliance with what the banking standards set by any particular country are. And essentially, like, that's one of the major steps of any corporate governance failure as well. So I think as a field, it's an incredible domain to be in, and you do an very essential part of the work because you're protecting not just the bank itself, but the millions of customers who are actually attached with that bank. So I think you're also doing a great work in terms of that. For students who wish to apply to this particular role, I would say take it lightly, in the sense that don't see this as something where that I really need to get in and what is my future career going to look like, but instead take it day by day and try to learn your best. And as Himanshi said, it's not just about the work, it's also about your interpersonal skills, it's also about your personal development. Because for a lot of students, it's probably going to be your first time stepping out of your home, going to a completely different city. I had to move to Chennai for my internship. I had to spend 2 months in like South India, which was completely different from my experience over here in North India. So I think all of that is things that you should really be prepared for, and I think it's just like an incredible journey that you should cherish.
So, in conclusion, I would like to say that even if not specifically for the internal audit role, if you get an opportunity to join Barclays as an intern, I think it would be an incredible opportunity because of the team bonding activities, the kind of campus, the kind of exposure that this internship will give you. Not for me, honestly, the experience was about shifting to an entire new city on my own for the first time in my life. So that I think will give you a lot more learnings than just sitting on Excel on your desk, which is something that Barclays provides. So more than internal audit, they taught us how to exist in a team of 40 people, how to make your presence feel. And I think it was a very sweet spot that I had in my internship because everybody else was 30 years old or everybody else was they were already very mature in their career phase. But I was the only one among the 3 other interns that we had in the Pune campus. So that was an amazing experience. Just apart from that, I think the activities that they have with their international managers, they were amazing. And yeah, the Barclays campus was amazing.
Alright, so I think an internship at the end of the day, it should not be about things like whether I'm able to secure the PPO, whether that's a good brand name or not, or even whether this is where I want to make my career in. Right? Those should be the secondary questions. The primary question should be, do I see myself enjoying the work I do? It should not be like a typical 9 to 5 routine, but instead somewhere that I would genuinely be happy to work 5 days a week. Right? And I think for me, Barclays had been a place like that. And I think with this video, I hope there's 2 major things that we've tried to answer. A, how is Barclays essentially as a bank and as a company, as an employer for you to work in? And B, how is Bhavya's internal audit and what is internal audit as this division? And I think if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either of us.